haere mai, haere mai, haere mai. I want to welcome all of you to Drumcaw because this was the home of the Wrights, and the Dohertys were the people who worked here. This morning I got up at dawn and went up onto the hilltops of this farm so that I could karakia the rising sun and ask for a blessing on all of us, and especially on the people of this house and this land, as we tell the story of what happened here. This is the culmination of the story before the Wrights and the Dohertys do what they do and journey to Aotearoa, New Zealand. So what happens in this house is that living here and coming here are William and Jeannie Wright. So we understand that Jeannie on her arrival is poorly in health, and we think the reason they came from Strabane is because we think she had TB. She needs a nursemaid, the farm needs a worker, and the garden needs a gardener, and so the Wrights and the Dohertys connect at Drumcaw. William Wright moved to Drumcaw from Strabane, and in Strabane he was a successful businessman, and he ran a business in the main street of Strabane that was an agricultural service business. And so what he produced or sold was guano, I think it's called, fertilizer from South America. He also sold insurance, and he sold various services that were required for the agriculture here in Ireland. He then, in Drumcaw, he runs his cattle, and he also has prize horses. And those horses are here on the property, and they are probably his pride and joy. When the Wright family came here to Drumcaw, they came with their two children. One was Jane, she was the oldest, and we think when they arrived here she might have been early teenage. And with her was her younger brother, William Ralston. And Ralston was a name that was carried in the family because Jeannie was a Ralston from Strabane. So the two children, Jane and William Ralston, and those two would have played, we think, in these grounds, certainly in the latter stages of their teenagehood towards adulthood. This was their home. Catherine Doherty. She was here as part of the workers, and Catherine, in that house there, in one of those windows probably, was looking after Jeannie Wright. The farm needed workers, and it needed farmers to look after cattle and to look after horses. And Edward, who got called Ned Doherty, was the worker on this farm, and he looked after 2565. That's your name. And he looked after these animals. And as you can see, it's now a modern farm, and so these animals are living on the farm, have been bred on the farm for a long time. And if you swing and look at the farm buildings, you get to the last one with the little white door, and that building is the only farm building that would have been here when the Wrights were here, and it's the stable that the horses were in. James Doherty worked here as a gardener. He was the father of the Doherty children, and it's believed in the stories that we've heard from the farm that the Wrights were responsible for the trees that now just adorn this drive. So therefore James probably planted these trees, and they're a testament now and a beauty all of their own. So thank you, James, for your trees. It's 1879 in Ireland at this time. For a Protestant and a Catholic to be considered to have any form of personal relationship and friendship is just the worst possible thing that could happen. William Ralston Wright and Catherine Doherty leave Drumcaw to get married. They get married in Derry, and they are on their way to the Isle of Bute, to Rothsay, which is just out of Glasgow, and it's where the Wright family originally have come from. So William Ralston Wright has relatives who are living on the Isle of Bute, and he goes there with his new bride to live. This is the barn. We've kind of been building up to this barn. What's happened is William and Catherine have left. William returns and takes a horse from this barn out this door and takes it to the Fermanagh Fair and wins a medal for the prize agricultural stallion. And the medal is called Cock of the North, and I would say everybody at Drumcaw is incredibly proud of what's been achieved. A champion horse lives in this barn. At the same time, the Church of Killedeis, the Church of Ireland just down the road, and the church that Jane and William go to is being prepared for its consecration. And it's a big occasion in the district. And everybody who is related or connected to the Church of Ireland in Killedeis is going down to have their opportunity to bless their church, to open their church, and this is happening in 1881. So imagine the scene. We've got beautiful horses in here. We've got a church down the road that's being opened and consecrated. We've got the bishop in town. We've got all the Protestants who are connected with the Church of Ireland down celebrating the opening of the church. And while that's occurring, somebody, and we don't know to this day who did this, but somebody entered into this building and set it on fire. And we understand that it was because of the marriage of a Protestant boy to a Catholic girl that caused an act of retaliation, and this barn here burnt furiously. And when the fire was finally put out, there were 3 dead horses and a burnt out barn, and one of those horses was the cock of the north. This is inside the barn, in the top story of the barn. If you can imagine, the roof of the barn has burnt, the horses of the barn downstairs are dead, and then all that's left of this barn after the fire are the walls of brick and stone and the lintel that's here holding this door up, and this is the charred remains of the fire of 1881. So the scene is set for some decision making and difficult decision making. However, it's looking like New Zealand is a possibility, because to live back here at Drumcaw seems impossible. Jane and Ned then make a decision to leave. They get married in Fermanagh, possibly at Whitehill, and they connect with Catherine and William in Scotland, who now are about to have their second little daughter. And those 4 adults with those 2 little girls make the decision, New Zealand it is, and an offer is made to my grandfather, Bernard, who's been working at Maguire's in the main street of Irvinstown. He's a young man of 16, 17, and he's made the offer to come on the ship with them. And it is said, he accepts the offer, and it is said that his family, his mum and his dad, that's James and Mary, stood and watched him leave, and he put his shovel over his shoulder and he never looked back. I feel emotional telling the story. So there they are, leaving this beautiful area of Ireland because they have committed something that is unacceptable.